Fact check it afterward. You looked it up during the show. I'm sorry.
Bombs were dropped on Gaza, and per the BBC, the British aircraft dropped 4,000 tons of bombs on Dresden. So just for clarity,
in a single night, not 11 months.
In a single night, correct. Please don't cut me off. I have not cut you off. He called that a blood libel because that is a strategy, which is meant to just distract people from the truth or looking into it. So you say everything you say is a blood libel. Now, to answer your question, Piers, I think that's a very good question. And the answer for that is because the media as an entity has been basically mining Jewish pain, the history of their pain, by taking people out of context and presenting things that are as a fact that is simply untrue, things that I've never said. We are watching right now, and that's why I'm grateful for you to provide this opportunity. You are watching Rabbi Schmuley do this live, right? When we talk about yellow journalism and people that take things out of context and try to present it to people with a bunch of hysteria and go, oh my gosh, Candace said this. Oh my gosh, Candace is a Holocaust denier. Oh my gosh, he's called me all of these names, and he doesn't have a single fact in there. They just know that if they say those things, it's a trigger. It is reminiscent of exactly what was done for Black Americans for a very long time. They have now since changed their perspective on me, but for a long time, they thought that I legitimately hated being Black and hated the color of my skin because I stood against Black Lives Matter as an organization.
So Candace Owens and Rabbi Schmuley go head to head, and Rabbi Schmuley and Candace Owens have a long-standing beef. If you guys don't know, Rabbi Schmuley has come out against her, calling her anti-Semitic, labeling her a ton of the no-no words for anti-Semitism, the whole nine. And now Piers Morgan actually sits both of them down, which is awesome.
Organization, and I stood against what Black Lives Matter was doing, and the media made them hysterical. She's a Black person who doesn't even want to be Black, and she's a Black white supremacist. They bought that narrative because when the media lies, a lot of people accept that what they're reading is true. But of course, I didn't hate Black Americans. I didn't hate anything other than BLM abusing and mining Black pain, going back and saying, well, it's going to be just like slavery, to distract people from what was ultimately just a fraudulent organization that was actually going to bring more harms to Black Americans in the end. And that's how I feel about the state of Israel and everything they're doing. Ultimately, I believe it's going to yield more anti-Semitism. It's going to make people associate what Bibi Netanyahu is doing to all Jews around the world. And so I think it's important for them to realize it's these same exact tactics of manipulation, the same exact name calling and ad hominem attacks that is not based in fact and not based in reality, but based in not wanting to answer the fair critiques that people have about what Israel is doing. But that's a very good question.
Okay, Rabbi Schmuley, I mean, there's some validity to that argument, I think, is that too often I do see people immediately branded anti-Semitic if they dare to criticize the Israeli government. But there's a very big difference between criticizing a government and its actions and a whole people, which is what anti-Semitism is. And do you accept that difference?
The beauty of Israel is its democracy. You just said that hundreds of thousands of people are marching against Benjamin Netanyahu. I welcome those protests. It shows that even during war, listen, in 1864, the United States had a presidential election. Some people wanted to cancel it, saying that how could you elect Lincoln when there's a civil war? And they still had the election. Israel's the same. Let's just go through Candace Owens' history of anti-Semitism that is utterly unconnected.
I will let you do that. I will let you do that, and she can respond. But on my specific point, though, do you accept that it's perfectly possible, and indeed it should be in a robust democratic society, a central tenet of this, that Israel's government and its prime minister should be criticised by anyone who chooses to criticise them, without the people who criticise them being branded anti-Semitic?
Of course. I am a very close friend of Netanyahu, and I criticize him allowing Qatar. Qatar is one of the most duplicitous, evil governments in the world. They house all of the leaders, the billionaire leaders of Hamas. I criticize Benjamin Netanyahu, my dear friend, for allowing money to go into Hamas in the belief that they could be bought off. I criticize the Israeli government for not recognizing the Armenian genocide, something that Candace Owens blames the Jews. She actually says that Kemal Ataturk was led by the Jews to the Armenian genocide. By the way, the Armenian genocide took place under the Ottoman Turks, not Kemal Ataturk. She has no sense of history, and she just fabricates constantly.
Okay,
but let's just look for one moment.
Okay, on the specific
wait, one second. Let's just go through her history of anti-Semitism, please.
Yes, you said you had specifics of Candace Owens being
I will. Yes,
anti-Semitic. What are those examples?
Okay. You see, the Jewish community did not want Candace Owens to be anti-Semitic. This is actually a tragedy that a woman gifted by God with such eloquence has decided to become a purveyor of hate. And when she said in 2018 that she has no issue with Hitler because if he was a nationalist, but then he wanted to go beyond her borders, even then we didn't call her an anti-Semite. That's an absurd thing to say, that you had no issue with Hitler. Hitler, even domestically by then, had enacted all the Nuremberg laws. There was already the November 9th, 1938 pogrom.
Hang on. Just to clarify, let's take these one at a time. What do you believe she said about Adolf Hitler in the clip you're talking about?
She said that there was no issue with Hitler except for the fact that he went beyond his borders. If he was a nationalist,
let's play
that
the
would
clip.
have been enough.
Let me play the clip.
It's domestic. No, but my point is, no one called her.
In the interest of fairness, I'm going to play the clip so that viewers who've never heard it can hear what actually got said.
Yeah, I agree. I actually don't have any problems at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about, whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. You know, he was a National Socialist, but if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German, everybody to be speaking German, everybody to look a different way. That's not, to me, that's not nationalism. So in thinking about how it could go bad down the line, I don't really have an issue with nationalism. I really don't. I think that it's okay. It's important to retain your country's identity and to make sure that what's happening here, which I think is incredibly worrisome in terms of the decrease in the birth rate that we're seeing in the UK, is what you kind of want to avoid. So I don't have anything I have no problems with nationalism. It's globalism that I try to avoid.
So Candace, on that specific point, would you say...
Chat, what do you think? Is that valid? I think that's valid. I don't know why you could hate on that clip. But there is an old saying that a lot of Jewish people will talk about, and they'll say that anytime there's a rise in nationalism, there's a rise in anti-Semitism, so they view national identity as a threat. This is like a quote. A lot of Jews will say this, which obviously means that it would be in your best interest to destabilize nationalism if you really viewed it as something that is destructive towards your ethnicity.
That Rabbi Schmuley has categorized it correctly or not?
He's just openly lying, and that's why he didn't want you to play the clip. I was in the UK, by the way. I was at the Royal Automobile Club. There were Jewish journalists in the room, and nothing was written about it until months later when somebody was working on a hit piece about me. I was answering a question when they were saying, how can we just embrace the word nationalism when it sort of has this dirty feel? And I was just essentially saying that I actually don't have an issue with nationalism. I think it's totally fine to be a British nationalist, to be an American nationalist. And the problem is that it's wrongly attributed. That word, I think people instantly associate it with Adolf Hitler. And I would argue that he wasn't actually a nationalist because obviously he invaded Poland and he went beyond German borders. I didn't even mention Jewish people. I didn't mention the Holocaust. And suddenly you have people like Rabbi Schmuley who are pretending that I got up there and I defended Adolf Hitler.